Hey guys, welcome back to Previa Alliance podcast. This is Sarah, and we have one of our fan favorites back. You know her, Hannah. And guess who we also have?
We have baby Amelia Parker today. Thanks for having us.
So welcomed. We love a baby first podcast. Why not? So, from the last time that our listeners heard from you, pregnancy wasn't even really on your mind.
Oh gosh, no. That was probably was that a year ago?
At least a year ago. And she's very much here. She's like, I'm here. And so let's just catch up. Yeah. Let's tell our listeners, because we are going to put a little bit of a trigger warning on this podcast episode. We're talking about high-risk pregnancies. We're talking about hospital admissions. Mm-hmm. We're talking about call for what is emergency C-section, NICU. So if you're not in the place to hear it, listen to us later. Yeah. But it's just, again, we want to bring real stories and real experiences so you guys know you're not alone. Right. So let's start at, we decided let's have a second one.
So we decided in October. I am pretty fertile, so it happened pretty quickly. Found out we were pregnant the day after the Taylor Swift tickets went on sale. So
a gift from Taylor.
A gift from Taylor. I literally celebrated with a lot of wine when we got the tickets, and the next morning took a little pregnancy test that said you're pregnant. So.
I gotta remember, I got Botox for the first time on a Monday, and I found out I was pregnant with James on that Wednesday, and I was like, oh.
Okay, it's so funny you say that because my Botox was the Sunday before, and again, I think that was the Lord. Here's your last.
That's what I said. I said,
hurrah.
God gave me a little help through that.
Right.
He was like, and thou shalt not have wrinkles for a minute. And I was like, I called them. They're like, this is not the first time. This happens a lot. She even asked me, she's like, could you be pregnant? And I was like, we've got to let go of the hope of it a little bit that time because we've been trying for a little bit. I was like, no. Here we go.
We're pregnant.
Yep. So you had Botox and Taylor Swift tickets. So you were set up for success.
Right. Went into it with a good headspace. Very good headspace. I think it was the very end of October. Yeah. And then with my first, I had a pretty rough first trimester. Yeah. I did not feel well at all. And I didn't start feeling like that until a little bit later in my pregnancy with the second one. So with Nolan, it was probably 6 weeks. With her, it was probably 8 to 9. So I really had high hopes that it would be a great pregnancy. And then it took a turn pretty quickly.
Yeah. What was the first thing that you're like, oh boy, this is different?
Mentally. It was just hard mentally. And I still haven't figured out if it was because I had another toddler to take care of. So when I didn't feel good, I couldn't just go to sleep. I still had to mom.
Yeah.
Or, the hormones for a girl, it was next level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was physically did not feel good. Mentally did not feel good. I was exhausted. Seasonal depression, because by this time it was Christmas. I remember 2 weeks before Christmas, there were 2 days where I could not get out of bed.
Yeah.
And a lot of it physically didn't feel good. But mentally, I just was in such a dark space. And this might sound really terrible. I kind of resented her before we were not even out of the first trimester. And I had resentment towards my baby, which then made me feel
guilty
100 times worse.
Yes. And but I hear so much. And so depression, anxiety during pregnancy is so real. Mm-hmm. And there's this concept that society tells us that we are supposed to just shut up and just accept the uncomfortableness of it or the struggle of it. And that is suffocating, and that gives no room. But the reality is, I hear more than not moms saying what you just said and being like, I've had overwhelming anxiety, or I was resentful because I could not physically do what I could normally do. It's taxing. So you don't resent her. You're so you want her.
So in love, and now that she's here,
But that's a thought's a thought, right? And so that was how that was that moment. And thank you for sharing that because so many, I guarantee 100%. I can say this confidence. I've heard that, and they're like, no one else said that. And when they check on you, they're like, they never think. There's never room for that conversation.
Exactly.
That mom might not be physically or mentally doing okay during the pregnancy.
Exactly. And it was one of those things I was trying to not take it for granted because, again, I do get pregnant pretty easily.
Right.
And I have so many friends that have struggled.
Yeah.
So they would be the ones checking on me. And here I am in this position where they pray to be pregnant.
Yeah.
And here I am unwell in my pregnancy. You know what I mean?
And I've heard women who've done IVF, they've struggled, they've tried for many years, then they are suffering in silence, experiencing depression or anxiety in pregnancy, or just feeling like this is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, your hard does not mean someone else's hard is invalid.
Yeah.
You know, and that does not, just because whatever led you to this point doesn't mean you can't feel what you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I hear that a lot is, I don't feel like I should feel this way, or what right do I have to? And it's like, you have every right in the world because it's you and it's your life and it's your mind and your body. So I hear it. And you do. You just, or people don't help. They're like, well, you should be thankful you got pregnant. All that.
Exactly.
Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
We are.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I have not been able to get out of bed physically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having dark thoughts. I don't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering how I'm now going to take care of this toddler plus be pregnant.
Right. Exactly.
I think having the second, or having the older child, Nolan, 100% made it 1,000 times harder.
Yes, it did.
Because you're right.
Especially in the early, because with Nolan, when I didn't feel good, I could come
You went to
home and
bed.
sleep. Exactly. And my job is physical, so I was having to be physical at work, active at work, come home, still not feel great. I have a 2-year-old who was 2.5 at the time.
You got to show up for him.
Yeah. Like, I couldn't.
You have a husband.
Right, exactly. And I didn't ever want Nolan to realize I didn't feel good, because I didn't want him to, you know, even though I don't think 2-year-olds can be resentful, but I didn't want him to feel some type of way about the baby.
And blame her.
Because he knew that she made mommy sick. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's already like, they sense it, right? They sense something's different.
Yeah.
Will did when I was pregnant with James. I mean, they sense it.
Mm-hmm.
And you overcame that.
Yes.
And that led to kind of the next hurdle in your pregnancy.
Yes. So I feel like I started to feel better mentally and physically like January. We found out she was a girl, which I didn't realize how much I wanted a girl until I found out I was having a girl. So I spent January to March super excited, shopping a lot, just having so much fun with it all. And then probably like when I was like 21, 22 weeks pregnant, my blood pressure started to go crazy, which I have with Nolan, everything was perfect.
Fine.
Everything was great. Aside from the morning sickness, like I never had to end up in the hospital. Yeah, so my blood pressure started to go crazy. And it was one of those things where it would be high at home, and I would go in to the ER or the emergency department for the OB clinic, and they would say, oh, it's fine, go home. And that happened like twice in the month of March, which that made me feel crazy. Because here I am, I'm like, well, I have calibrated this blood pressure machine. I took it in every time I went to the hospital and lined it up with what the machine there was saying, and it was always
accurate.
Yeah. So yeah, that was March. And then I'm trying to remember what happened where they finally
was it a scan or was it?
No, so I never had a scan.
Okay.
I guess probably the third time I ended up at the ED, they took it and it was super low.
Okay.
And it was like 40/70. Or
wow.
I'm so bad with blood pressure.
No,
numbers.
but super low. Yeah.
It was like super low to where the doctor came in and was like, okay, now you're having the opposite problem.
Like,
you're not leaving.
Yeah.
And so he decided to keep me overnight. And later that night, it was crazy high, like 165/110. And this was all within the hour.
You're just like, what is happening?
What is happening? And I do want to say I had COVID between my pregnancies, just to preface all of this. So yeah, it was like 165/110 plus. It was out of control, and then it would drop again, super low. So I ended up, the first time I was hospitalized, spent 6 nights in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
At Grandview with my toddler at home. So that really threw us for a loop. And my husband, his biggest event of the year, he's in sporting events, and his biggest
I was going to
event
say, the timing of that.
Timing was so bad looking back, but I mean, we made it work.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
What are we going to do? Luckily, I was at Grandview, and his office is literally across 280 from Grandview. So he was with me as much as he could.
Yeah.
He was working from the hospital a lot, going back and forth in those 6 days. But in those 6 days, my blood pressure continued to go high and go low. They would give me blood pressure medicine for my high blood pressures that would bottom me out, make me pass out. They were doing like MRIs. They were doing like checking all. The medical world is so over my head, but they checked like everything that they could.
And she was fine during it all. It was you.
Yes, it was me. And that is the thing. Like, thank God every time I was hooked up to the monitor, her heart rate was perfect. She moved like crazy. She, she was thriving.
But in the back of your head, you're just like, what is wrong with me? I don't want it to affect her.
Exactly.
I'm away from Nolan. This is Parker's like busiest time. Right. I'm trapped in this hospital.
Right. And I do, at that point, so when I was feeling good in January, I scheduled all of my appointments for work.
Yeah.
Through the end of my maternity.
You're like, I'm going to get this. Like, we've got this.
I literally had people on the books, which I know that doesn't matter. All my clients were super flexible during everything. But in my mind, I'm like, no, I cannot be laying in this hospital bed. I need to be at work. Like, that is what I need to be doing right now. You just felt that pressure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I ended up, after a couple hospitalizations, I ended up at UAB with a high-risk doctor where they diagnosed me with dysautonomia.
Okay.
And they said that they've seen it kind of like come after COVID, like as a long-term effect of COVID. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So my doctor, or the doctor that was my high-risk doctor, he thinks that pregnancy like triggered it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, which it's like still is the weirdest thing, because like one day I'd be fine and felt like I could rule the world, and then the next day my blood pressure would be through the roof.
And there's like anxiety to that, right? Because you're just like, well, what's today going to be?
Right. Exactly. Like, I hope I can work today. I hope I can be a mom today.
Right.
And there was a time where I was at UAB that my blood pressure, the top number, ended up like 215.
Oh, hell.
Like insane. And so by this time I'm like 24 weeks pregnant, and they kind of mentally prepared me to have her at 34 weeks. They were like, we're going to be lucky if we make it to 34 weeks.
Wow.
Because they said it's going to be pre-eclampsia at some point. I like didn't believe them in the moment. I was like, no, that's, I still in my head was like, my first pregnancy was so normal. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I guess I was really in denial. Major in denial. But they started like pumping me with the steroids that they give you. Did they give you those?
They did.
Yeah.
That shot hurt.
Oh, it did.
I cried. I remember I think it was Will's shot that I cried. And I was like, that was one of the most painful shots of my life.
It's painful. So they started doing those for me at 24 weeks. So I was at Grandview, and my doctor came in and was like, we're going to transfer you to UAB. This is right before I got diagnosed with dysautonomia. Then I roll up to UAB as the MEU, like the maternal.
I visited that one. They know me there. I know them.
So I got there, and the first thing that the doctor said was, so I guess they almost delivered you yesterday at Grandview. I was 24 weeks, Sarah. I was like, did they? I didn't know that. And that was the day my blood pressure was like 215. And it was that high for like an hour, but they got it down.
You're like, what?
I know. Me and my husband looked at each other like, oh.
Okay. No one said anything.
Right. Thank God they didn't, because that would have made my BP go higher. But 24 weeks. So I was just, thankful, obviously, that they didn't. They diagnosed me with the dysautonomia, and I kind of just lived my life as best I could. That sounds really dramatic.
No. I mean, I get it, because with Will's high-risk diagnosis of Previa, I just had to live every day and just say, okay, let's just see what today brought. Right. And mine wasn't blood pressure, but mine was like if I spotted. I had 10 minutes to get to the hospital. Like literally. So I lived my life looking for, spotting.
Blood,
and you had the blood pressure. I mean, that mental toll of, am I going to make it? Are we going to make it to what week? That really messed me up a little bit, because I was just, because you think you do milestones, right? Like the viability is huge.
Oh, yeah.
And then literally every week matters.
It does.
It really matters. And you just hold your breath. Now, I, with Will, didn't have anybody, I didn't have another child. He was my first living child. So I didn't have what you had with Nolan. Like, you're still mom.
Yeah. But it made it, I mean, my mom lives close, 5 minutes away. Thank you, God. And Nolan loves my mom.
Yeah.
Like, they have a great relationship. So we used her a ton.
Yeah.
But it also, like.
Distracted you?
Yeah. Distracted me. So the days I felt good, honey, we went everywhere. We did we went to the park every day that I felt good. We were on the go.
Right.
Just trying to live it up with him as an only child. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And then what changed where they're like, it's time?
Okay, so that went back and forth. Like,
I remember I was like, what is going, because I would check in. I'd be like, okay, where are we at? Where are we at? What week's she at? And where are we at?
And like, it makes you feel like a crazy person to be in and out of the hospital that much. Because I've never, up until having my C-section in 2020 with Nolan, I had never spent the night in a hospital. So like
it's misery.
It is not.
It's not like a luxury. Like I always tell people back from nursing days, I'm like, this is like Motel 6. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're in and out. This is not like you are not going to rest.
Right. Oh gosh, no.
It's loud.
Yeah.
It smells a certain way. The food's horrible.
Yeah. And it just like, I guess just, it almost felt embarrassing like telling people because it was like, oh, my blood pressure's high today. And then it's low. Like I felt like all over the spectrum.
Well, you know what I mean? Too. And some people, like you go in and you're like, no. I like, there's a point of, I hear it from so many moms and so different situations. Like I wasn't believed or they looked at me like sideways, like, girl, you were like, really?
You're fine. Go home. Yeah. And I felt that a lot.
And that's hard.
It is. And even, so the high-risk doctor, he was like, you know, you can still stay with your primary OB at Grandview, but you still have to come see me every now and then. And he was like, if you end up having to go back to the hospital, I want you to come back here instead of Grandview. So, like, there were probably 3 times after the diagnosis that I ended up hospitalized. Yeah. And the girls at the MEU, like, looked, I would go in and it would be normal. And they'd be like, you're fine. And I'd be like, no. Like, read the chart. Yeah. Don't just, like, look at the number on the blood pressure right now because 10 minutes ago was through the roof. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I didn't really realize what all high blood pressure affected, but it can affect everything. Blood flow to your placenta. Yeah. Know? So that's, like, me, I'm fine. Like, I don't care.
But sure is when it comes to her.
But I don't want it to stop blood flow, you know?
And that's the key there, too. And I hate that happened to you. I mean, that experience has happened to so many moms. I know what that's like. And you're just looking at them and you're like, read the chart.
Right. Like, read the chart.
Read the chart. I'm not some crazy off the street. I've been here. Right. We've done this.
Right.
I know the best parking spot at this point. Like, and I tell that to, you just, it's so annoying and you feel, but you just have to keep being like, nope. And advocate for yourself through it because they won't.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say as a nurse, like sometimes you don't read everything you should.
Right.
And sometimes you make quick judgments and you shouldn't.
Exactly. So then fast forward to, we went a couple weeks doing that ping pong game. Then fast forward to like 31 weeks. I made it to the Taylor Swift concert.
I the whole entire time I'm like, because if I never made it to Taylor Swift. I delivered like on the Money Shoes playing on a Friday. I ended up giving my OB, a resident who helped deliver Will, my tickets.
Stop.
So she got to go. I mean, me and her both were traumatized, so she needed Taylor. She was great. That bond, but she enjoyed Taylor. But so I'm glad you got to do it. You are much more of a Taylor girl than me too. Like this was a thing.
I'm a Swiftie. I am a Swiftie. And I joked my entire pregnancy. I was like, if Amelia Parker doesn't let me go to Taylor Swift, she's going to come out of the womb grounded.
She got to enjoy it. And it was raining, right?
It was raining. Yeah, it was the rain show. It was delayed 4 hours.
And you're like, I'm sitting here pregnant. I don't know if my blood pressure 200 or 40, but we're going to sing these songs.
Crazy. And my husband, he already had tickets to go with us. Yeah. And we thought about selling his, but he was like, no, I've got to go.
Because y'all got to go to Vandy or something, deliver a baby.
And that's what so I was supposed to go, I went to Nashville, but I was also supposed to go to Boston, Taylor. And my OB was like, we ain't doing that. That's a flight. Vandy's a drive. Yep. Because if you have the baby while you're there, she's going to be in the NICU. So, so made it to Taylor. And then about a week after Taylor, I could not stop throwing up one day. And luckily it was the day I had an OB appointment. So I went in, was throwing up, and my doctor was like, you are severely dehydrated. So she sent me over to the OB-ED to get fluids. And again, they didn't take it seriously. That doctor on call was like, you're fine. Let me leave like 5 hours later after like 2 bags of fluids. My husband, he was there through everything. Yeah. This is literally the one day that I went to the hospital that he didn't come. And I passed out on the way to my car in the parking garage of the hospital. So again, like, I felt like an idiot. They're not taking me seriously when my doctor has just sent me over from an appointment to be evaluated. And this doctor on call still is like, you're good.
And here you pass out in the parking lot.
And I literally pass out in the parking lot. Yes. It was so embarrassing.
No, they should feel so. I mean, but I'm telling you, I've had multiple Previa moms and friends be like, I was sent home, then I had the baby, like literally a few hours later, or they were wrong, they didn't listen. So I tell everybody, it's like, you just got to keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Yeah. And my husband, like, again, he wasn't there, and he was like, well, did you feel bad? And I was like, yeah, I felt like I could barely walk. And he was like, why didn't you say something?
But you just, like, well, you get in these situations,
right,
and you're just like, well, what am I supposed to say?
Right. I don't want to look like this person that's making, I don't ever want to look like I'm making any of this up for attention.
Yeah,
almost.
And no, yeah.
And that was like always in the back of my head, especially when at the beginning when I would go in and nothing would be wrong. I'd be like, this is humiliating. Like, I'm not this kind of person. I don't like the attention, negative attention.
Yeah,
like, that's not my vibe.
No.
Yeah. So I passed out, called my doctor because my husband,
God.
I was like, you've got to come get me. Like,
I can't do this.
I cannot do this. So he came to get me, drove me home. I called my OB and she was like, get back to the hospital. They do not need to be letting you go. So I went back and they gave me a 24-hour urine test. This was like my 5th, like every hospitalization. Did you ever have to take
Yes, I had to do one of it. Those. You bring a jug.
Yeah, a jug.
You carry your pee around. Literally, you carry your pee around.
You do. It's terrible. So that is the one that showed severe preeclampsia. And I was 30, like right at 30 weeks at that point. Yeah. So at that point, the doctor was like, all right, this is it. It's officially pre-E. We knew it would be.
Right.
My doctor was like, you did make it further than I thought I would. Like, they were expecting me to have it at 28, 29 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I made it to 30.
Okay.
So she was like, you're here to stay.
Yeah.
Until you have this baby. And she was like, our goal is 34. I ended up, at this point, I was far enough along where they let me choose which hospital to go to.
Yeah.
And I just felt more comfortable at Grandview versus UAB. It was just more convenient to get in and out of.
Yeah.
So I'm at Grandview, and she's like, you're here until 34 weeks. Unless the baby comes sooner, then we're just going to have to do what we have to do. So.
And so when did she come?
So 32 and 1.
Okay, Miss Thing.
I know. That was Memorial Day Sunday.
I remember that. Yes, I remember that. I remember your post, and I was just like, she made it.
I made it,
Yeah, I was just
than
like,
I thought we would.
They made it, but I think everybody kind of held their breath. I'm sure, you did too. Yes. Like, you're just, God, that's up and down a lot.
It was a lot. And again, my husband, Sarah, was with me through every step, he was with me through every step. The whole time we were in the hospital, he was like, me and Nolan especially, he needs normalcy. Yeah. Memorial Day, we are grilling hot dogs.
Okay.
We are grilling hot dogs.
We want a hot dog.
And I was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
She's not coming anytime soon. Like, it was the Sunday morning. I was like, you go, do hot dogs.
Get this boy a hot dog.
Get him a hot dog. Y'all live your life. So he took Nolan to Lowe's. Nolan, who had never pooped on the potty at Lowe's.
Hey.
The day his sister was born.
What a man.
What
a man.
Parker is still very proud of that.
I mean, I would be too. Right. Like, this is a ride of honor.
Right.
This will be told at his wedding.
Parker will tell it at the rehearsal dinner.
I knew things were going to be fine when you pooped at Lowe's.
At Lowe's. So there, Parker and Nolan are at Lowe's getting tomato plants because Parker just needed a normal day.
So it's a coping. It's a coping strategy, right? Like, you're just like, let me plant a tomato plant.
So things started going crazy with my blood pressure, but it wasn't like through the roof. It was just like 160 over like 99, 100.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, they weren't like, oh my gosh, it's happening.
Wasn't panicked yet.
So I texted Parker and I was like, just so you know, like, this is where we're at. It's not time. They're going to give me some blood pressure medicine. It's going to be fine. So after 3 rounds of blood pressure medicine, it was still pretty high.
Yeah.
I started to get like the headache and the upper abdominal pain that they like warn you about with pre-E. So they said, okay, today's the day.
Yeah.
I was like, what? So I called Parker and I said, I think we're having a baby today. That's what the doctor said.
I think you need to get away from Lowe's.
Right.
And come on.
So at this point, he was home. And he would literally, his response was, I just put hot dogs on the grill.
So sorry.
Right. Like, and he's great. I think that was his way of processing, like, the hot dog. I just wanted a normal day.
He's just like, woman, can you not give me a hot dog?
So, thank God for my mom. She rushed over. Nolan got his hot dogs. Parker didn't get his hot dogs, but he's fine.
Still salty.
He got a daughter.
Thank you. You have a daughter. Welcome to be a girl dad now, Parker. Like, this is how it goes.
He not showered that day. And, like, that's usually the first thing he does. But just this day, he didn't. And he asked the nurse, I had him on speaker, and he was like, do I have time to take a shower? And the nurse was like, she just kind of shook her head like,
Get here. No. Yeah. Come now.
Yeah. And then an hour and a half later, we had the baby. I know. I did wash my hair the night before she was born. It's like, I knew.
I just have to say, you looked fabulous.
Okay. No, Sarah, I didn't. My nurse thought I was crazy, and I know she did. The doctors thought I was crazy because she came in and she was like, it's time. You're having the baby in an hour and a half. And I was like, okay, let's go to the bathroom. Let's do this pre-op stuff while I curl my hair and put on some.
You looked great.
The anesthesiologist came in. I was in the bathroom. He was like, ma'am, can you get in the bed for this? So I was like, okay.
Can you not ever do a wire curl, sir?
Right,
like what's your problem? I can do it. Can you do it? I just need to know when I'm going numb.
Right.
Like, I just put me in my chair and I can still curl. That'll be a visual I'll always think of you.
They literally rolling me out of the room, and I'm like putting on my lip
You're
gloss.
like, wait.
Right.
I gotta look good in this moment. I'm meeting my daughter.
Right. And that's what I told the nurse. And she got it. She was like, I get it.
And you know what? You've been through so much of this work. Like, give me this.
Right. Like, I just needed to control something.
Like give me that.
Like, Parker just needed to control
the hot dog. You needed to put that lipstick on, and you're just, give me that moment.
You know, once postpartum hits, it's all
Girl,
downhill from there.
It just, it just went. I remember I did a little bit, like very, very little makeup for James. And I remember one of my high-risk doctors saw me after, and this was after hysterectomy, and he looks at me, he's like, you're really glowing. Is this because the hysterectomy, or is this because you're wearing makeup right now? I was like, I think both. And I was like, because I would go to appointments, and I was like, large and in charge, ready to be done.
Right. Dead to the world.
And so he was just like, wait, where's this glow coming from? I was like, it's called bare minerals and hysterectomy. But yes, I was like, I remember that comment. And he was just like, you're just glowing. I'm like, well, thank you. Glad you noticed.
Right.
You know, we're survived. Glad you noticed. I look good. But I remember looking at your picture. I'm like, she looked good.
Oh, thank you. So, the day did not start that way.
No.
But
we rallied.
Right. I rallied. Threw on some concealer.
Yeah.
Let's go.
You're like, let's do this. So what? Did you get to hold her, or did they take her?
Yes. So luckily I got to hold her, and like I said, they prepared me for the NICU stay through my whole pregnancy.
They talked about it to you. You knew this was going to be your route.
But in my head, I was like, yeah, they'll probably take her for a minute. Like, it's not going to be a big thing.
You weren't ready for the whole.
Yeah. And then when it was 30, because in my head, we were going to make it to 34 weeks.
Yeah.
And then 32 weeks. And I was like, oh my gosh. So luckily, they had a NICU nurse come in and talk to me before they took me back.
Okay, good. So I love that.
Right. I mean, the NICU at Grandview, 10 out of 10. They were amazing every step of the way. So I did get to hold her probably for 30, 45 seconds. And then the NICU nurse kind of walked up, and she was like, okay, I don't like the way her color's turning. I got to take her.
Yeah.
And then I didn't. So they took her. My husband went with her.
Yeah.
And they took me back to my post-op room, and my husband came in and met me in there, and he was like, they kicked me out. Asked him to leave because they had to put a breathing tube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ventilator
on her.
And they didn't want him to be there for that. So,
yeah.
So she was born right at 2 p.m. and I was holding her by 7:30, like in the NICU room, which was nice. That nurse thought I was crazy that I had that day because she saw me putting on my makeup.
And she was like, okay.
And then I was like, they rolled me out, and I was like, okay, let me go see the baby.
Yeah.
And the nurse was like, you can't.
I did the same thing.
You can't lift your legs yet.
I said, put me in this wheelchair. Roll me. I did the same thing.
Let's figure it out.
I said, no. You're going to get, no. I remember that specific. They were like, I'm like, we're taking the pump. At that time, I still had a PCA pump. Mm-hmm. I had I have my catheter in.
Yeah.
I couldn't walk.
No, couldn't walk.
I'm like, Bill, do something.
Carry me. Bring the baby in here.
Do something. Like, I'm going.
Right.
And that's something, too. I've heard a lot of moms who went this. You're like, I want to see my baby because it's not natural to be separated.
Right.
Like, we know it is what it is, but we're going to go.
And I will say that is something I felt like I had to advocate for
yes,
myself.
Same. Yes.
I have so many friends that had NICU babies, and they didn't get to see them for the first 24 hours or so.
Yeah.
Which is so heartbreaking. Like, cannot even imagine.
I've heard that as well, and I was like, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will crawl.
Right. Like, I'm going to see the baby tonight. I don't care if you have to take me or if I have to go myself.
Yeah.
With my hands and knees.
One of the on-call doctors, I remember he got frustrated with me. He was like, she's in the NICU. I need to evaluate her. I said, you know where I'm at. Right. You come down there. Like you, like I literally said that. So you know where I'm at.
Yeah, I haven't like left the hospital.
Yeah, I'm not AMA running the streets.
Right.
Like you can find me in the NICU.
Right. Exactly.
I remember he was frustrated. I'm just like, well, I'm frustrated that you're frustrated about that.
Exactly. And it was just such a different hospital stay than with Nolan. Like with Nolan, I loved it. We were in like a newborn bubble. Yeah. Everything was sweet. And with this one, I was like on the go. Like wake up, okay, gotta go check on the baby.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's a whole different experience. And you're right. The bubble is it's burst.
It burst.
And quick. You are recovering from a C-section. You're now physically having to go to where your child is in the NICU. Mm-hmm. And the NICU experience is not for the faint of heart.
Oh my gosh, no.
You know, it's just not.
It's not. The first time I saw her, I don't know if you felt this way, but I was afraid to touch her for a few days.
Oh my God. I was scared to death. And the cords, the tubes. Yeah. They're so tiny. I remember crying. I was like, he's so tiny. And he had no fat. His little skin just fell off his little bones. And I was just like, I'm going to break him. And Bill was scared to death to touch him too. Like, and my parents, I remember we all were just like, oh gosh, you know, you just didn't feel. And the nurses, they'd pick him up and like, you know, throw him on your chest. You're just like, oh, like I didn't breathe. Yeah. I was like, I don't know what to breathe or like, and then I'm sure too, the monitors.
Oh, the freaking NICU monitors.
You're watching them, you're listening to them. Like your mind just hears them.
Yeah.
And if they brady, if their heart rate goes down, if their O2 sat goes down, you're just like, And you're just like, is it going to be okay?
Right. And we weren't prepared for the Brady's. Like that ended up being what kept us there the longest. But going into it, I just like thought she'd have to learn to eat. Like I never knew the Brady's were a thing.
You're like, I don't,
And the first time she had one.
And they're scary.
They're so scary. The first time she had one, like 3 nurses ran in and me and Parker are like,
no.
She's turning blue. A bunch of nurses have just run in. Like what is going on? Yeah, we just weren't prepared for that part of it.
I always say it's just not natural to see. It's not natural for your child to be away from us, right? We feel that, right? Yeah. We're just like, oh my gosh. And then to see medical interventions on our child is super hard. Yeah. And you feel like you have no control and you're trusting these people and you just don't know what's happening. You're like, well, is it going to be okay? And I remember our NICU experience. There was a girl across from us and the dad. I always looked at the dad. I didn't really see mom, so I don't know what's going on with mom. And the baby would just decel or they would crash and like they run in and you're seeing it. You're trying not to look at it. And then you're trying not to put that on your child and you feel for them and you're just like living in this, you get in this little bubble, the NICU.
Yeah. Yeah. You really do.
Time goes by in the NICU and you're like, wait, a whole day. Now let's not forget you have Nolan during all this.
Yeah. Yeah. So he luckily, like I said, we stayed at Grandview, so we live in Cahaba Heights, so it was like 7 minutes away, and Nolan goes to school right by the hospital. Yeah. So I would just drop him off every day and go to the hospital until I had to go pick him up. Yeah. Yeah. And I went into it thinking that I would spend every night with her. Yeah. But by the grace of God, like, I did not ever feel the need to do that. And I think it's because the ladies that work at the NICU
were so amazing.
Angels. Yeah. Like, I had a direct line to call. Yeah. The second she went in the NICU, they gave us a direct line to call that, like, straight up there, I just say, I need to speak to whoever has room 5 today. Right. Yeah, they were just amazing. But it was difficult juggling all of it.
Because did you ever feel like I should be with Nolan or I should be with her? Like, did you ever feel that back and forth?
Yes. And no, like my husband was quick to check me and to remind me, there's nothing we can do for her, especially the first week or so when we couldn't hold her. Right. Yeah. It exhausted her for us to take her out of her box unless we were feeding.
You just had to let her be.
Yeah, we just had to let her be. So I think that Nolan, as hard as it was, it also helped me keep me sane. Yeah. Because if I was just sitting at home or just sitting
in there and just not taking breaks, not having normalcy at what is normalcy, but like at least going outside, driving in your car, seeing the sun, eating. Because I saw that too. I did that. I trapped myself in the NICU because I felt like, I was going to do something. I couldn't. It's time. Yeah. There's not like you have to give that time.
Exactly. And they like prepared us for that. Yeah. When in the beginning, but I don't know. You still just don't wrap your brain around it.
You hear it and you're like, it's not going to be that bad, or it won't be this way, or the ups and downs of like when you think you're going to get home, or you think she's made that step.
Yes. And we did a lot of comparing. Like I have a client whose daughter was born at 33 weeks and they spent 12 days.
Yeah.
So in my head, I was like, okay, like 10 to 15 days. Like,
I Googled. As soon as he popped out 34-1, I was like, what is the average NICU stay?
Right. Exactly.
And I, in my head, you set these goals or whatever.
Oh, he'll be out. So she was born May 28th. My birthday is June 23rd. So in my head, I was like, oh, we'll be home and way settled by my birthday. Like, this isn't going to be that long. You know, it's not going to be that hard. And it didn't hit me that we would even leave the hospital without her until the day we left the hospital.
How was that?
I cried all day. I like literally just let myself have a day to cry.
And that was my day to cry.
Yeah. And
get it out.
Especially with those postpartum hormones. And I will say, so I'm on Lexapro.
Yeah.
And they upped my Lexapro dose right before she was born. Thank God. Because I needed that like extra little buffer and it came at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about this privately, but like, did you feel, because you've been open about Nolan and like your experience postpartum. Did you feel people being like, you good? You good?
Yes. I feel, And I don't think I realized how bad off I was mentally postpartum with Nolan until having her, because I mean, it sucked. That day that I cried, I just cried. But other than that, I was like, okay, I got to get up and go. I don't have time to sit here and dwell and have a pity party too long, you know?
Yeah.
So I felt, and as people meant it in the best way, but a lot of people were like, you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And almost like reminding me that I had postpartum with Nolan.
Right.
And then there I am. And for a couple of days, I was like, well, do I not love her as much because I'm not as sad as I thought I'd be having a NICU baby?
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. And you're just like, no, I just was not having postpartum depression anxiety.
Exactly.
Like, I am actually coping. And that's you can have it with one pregnancy and not have it with another. You can have it with both pregnancies. You can have, I mean, there's no rhyme or rhythm to this, but the same people did it to me. I mean, granted, with Will, I was very, very bad, as people should be concerned. Yeah. But then I was just like, don't put that on me. Because then it's like the whole, like, I'm being super vulnerable, but here I am in a vulnerable postpartum stage, no matter what. And they're like, how are you? How's your thoughts? And you're just like, or you do cry, right? Yeah. You do cry. And they're just like,
like, but valid tears this time.
You're like, you're not, I was rational. I could think through it.
Right.
It didn't keep getting worse.
Exactly.
Like, I could function.
Consume me. Like, I could
I lived my life.
This is bad. Yeah, I don't want my daughter in the NICU.
Right.
But she is. I'm going to be upset about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to go home and be a great mom to Nolan. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I was able to leave it where it needed to be left.
Yeah. That my experience, with James, I had rage, but like, I think that was a whole different spectrum of issues there. But I recognized it.
Yeah.
I had no clue what was wrong with me in postpartum depression. Like, I just thought this was normal.
With my first, I just cried.
Yeah.
And cried.
Yeah.
And cried.
Yeah.
And it just was totally different. And I really, like, I went into this, I, like, told my husband, I was like, I'm probably going to have it again. Yeah. Especially since she is in the NICU. And then
you had all the risk factors that we talk about, that if things that happen during pregnancy that put you more, but you did the important thing. You guys had a conversation. Yeah. You talked about, hey, this is what happened with Nolan. This is the signs. This is how I felt. If and he was on board, you were on board. Like, there was no hiding it. You guys had a plan. This is all the things we preach. You did is say, if this happens, we can't control this, but what can we control? The steps we can take to recognize it, to make sure you had treatment, you had support. He knew what was going on. It wasn't going to catch you. Like, it's not going to pull the rug out from you like it did the first time.
Right, exactly. We were shook the first time.
Well, because you're just like, what happened?
Everything about the first, And I also had Nolan during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Where I couldn't go anywhere.
Those COVID babies, they did a number on them.
They did. And with this one, I didn't, like, the day I got home from the hospital, I went to the NICU. Like, I literally went to see her every day. So I didn't have an option to sit at home and not go anywhere. So I also wonder if that played a
getting
role
up. And I'm sure there's tons of factors in it. And I think, too, just you, again, being so open and being honest and being prepared and, like, no shame in it. Yeah. I think that is a huge tool that we can all use when it comes to this conversation. Is just we're not going to be able to do anything about it if we don't acknowledge it.
Exactly. We can't pretend like it's not.
Yeah, we can't just be like, oh, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, it could happen. I was very aware, and we had the same conversations, and we say that. Like, you could have the picture perfect pregnancy and have postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm.
You could have everything go wrong and be fine postpartum.
Exactly. Yeah.
We can't tell that for you, but what we can tell you is, hey, this is normal. This is not normal. This is what you do. You ask for treatment. You go to therapy. You get on medication. Like I always say, like, instead of what diapers are you going to get, let's say, how are you going to get sleep? Who's going to be your safe person to be like, I'm not good.
Yeah. Help me.
I'm having these thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, she is clearly here,
She is.
thriving. I see fat rolls, which if you are a NICU mom, fat rolls are like, you just get so excited.
The best.
Because you work so hard for that.
So hard, yes.
And they,
I love her fat rolls.
you know, she is a doll and she's
Thank
perfect.
you.
And, you know, what from the NICU experience, if there is a mom who knows she's going to be in the NICU, what do you say to her?
Give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And let yourself cry.
Yeah.
Pray a lot. And something that I didn't do until I had a NICU baby or until my pregnancy got high risk is I never wrote my prayers. Like, I would always just talk to God, which is great, obviously. But writing stuff down helped me process more how I was feeling. So that was a huge thing. Yeah. And just give yourself grace.
Journaling. You essentially journaled.
Yes.
You know, some people voice journal. They pick up their phone and they do voice notes to themselves and get it out. Other people like to physically write it. And that is such a, we bottle stuff up. And, you know, on the prayer side of it, I write my prayers and I like to always go back and see the answered prayers.
Yes.
And that helps me in my anxiety sometimes when I'm just like, no, he's answered. You know, so that is something personally we share in common and that we do. But what would you also say to the mom who just got a high-risk pregnancy diagnosis and she's like 20 weeks and she's like, I don't know what's going to happen?
So for me, the good days, I had to make them really good. So like if my blood pressure was good on a day, then I was doing everything I could, with, like I said, with my son. I was going to Taylor Swift. Yeah. I was, you know.
You lived your life.
Right. Live your life on the good days. Yeah. Don't sit there and dwell. Yeah. Don't let it overcome you and consume you. You know, you just have to know you're in the best of hands. The Lord walked this walk before he knew this was going to happen, before I knew it was going to happen.
100%.
And something else I want to say, which so many people told me, but there's no time limit. Like, don't put the expectations of, okay, we have to get out by my birthday or by my son's birthday. Don't put that on your baby because that is just setting everyone up for
love that.
failure.
I love that. I did it. And it sets, you're right. It does.
It's terrible. Like, there was a day, so at Grandview, you know, the Brady count is 5 days. So every time she had a Brady, it would
you
put
set
us back
back.
5 days.
And people don't talk about that. And it's like, there was, I forget, there's a couple other things like the breathing something. There's like these 4, whatever the categories. Yep. And it does. It sets you back when something, this event happens. And it is like someone literally gut punched you when it happens.
Oh my gosh. It was terrible. So I keep talking about my birthday, but that was just like an event.
That is what you, in your head, set this goal. You are moving towards, like, it felt like you controlled that or like it felt good.
Yeah. So we went to dinner. We were on our Brady countdown. My birthday was on a Friday. She was supposed to come home on that Sunday. At Grandview, they want you to do what's called a room in, where you essentially spend the night with the baby, you and your husband. So we went to dinner for my birthday. Then we went to our room in, and we're literally walking past the monitors. And there's an alarm going off. And we look at each other and we're like, that's not her.
She's good.
And we get to the room and we had this poor nurse that we had never had before. She's feeding her and she looked at us and was like, she just had a Brady. And I was
unhinged.
I was like, what?
Fall apart.
Yeah. So we both had to just leave the room. We didn't say much to the nurse. We just kind of left the room and collected ourselves.
And you're like,
WTF.
Yeah.
What? We made it this far.
And you're like, I guess we're not doing the room in tonight.
Right. And I asked the nurse, I was like, are we bad parents if we don't spend the night with her? Because I just cannot be. I cannot.
You're like,
no. I cannot right now. Yeah. Yeah. So luckily 7 days after that is when she actually did get to come home.
Oh my God.
But yeah, just don't put the pressure. Don't go into it with no expectations other than, okay, my kid is going to get out of here when they are healthy to get out of here.
And that's the ultimate goal. Because then if I remember it killed me. They literally, I saw Will had like desatted a little bit the day we were going home. Not bad. And I was like, oh my God, and then they took the monitors off. Okay. It was just, I don't know if you felt this way. They took the monitors off of him. Like they take the little cords. They handed him to me. I was like, what?
See, I felt the exact opposite.
And I was just like, oh my God, I need a pulse ox now. But I was, I was in my spiraling downs phase here. Yeah. And then the noises of a NICU baby. I think you have to get comfortable with it. Yeah. And I was not comfortable. They didn't offer like a sleep over the night. I wish they would have. I think that would have been really helpful to me. Yeah. Because I was like, oh my gosh, she's gasping. And the reflux. We talked about this. Like, both my boys had horrible reflux. Yes. Those are scary sounds at night.
Yeah, they are. When you're laying there and they're 2 feet away and you're like, are you aspirating? What's happening? And then you look at them and they're perfectly fine.
And you're just, yeah. That, I think if you don't know that and you're suffering, that really spirals.
And again, like to compare it to my pregnancy and postpartum with Nolan, he lived in an outlet monitor. Yes. I was so paranoid all the time. And with her, we got it out. She hadn't worn it once. Literally, it's sitting on our bedside
That's how
table.
James like I said, Outlet was like 24/7. Yeah. And I would switch those toes because then I was paranoid that it would burn his foot. Right.
Yes.
Talk about intrusive thoughts. Okay. It's like, oh, he's breathing. Oh God, his toe's going to burn. Here we go. And James, I was like, oh, yeah, we pulled it out. Yeah. I think we pulled it out when he did a couple of first nights by himself in his room. And then I was like,
you're good.
I'm good.
Yeah. And I don't know. I guess I
even don't even look at the monitor as much with James.
Really?
I really don't. Yeah. I feel so bad, but sometimes I'm just like, I'll like obsessively sometimes look, and I'm just like, oh, he's always going to be that one. And
James for Nolan, like if he sleeps in, I would go in and I'm like, are you breathing? What's wrong?
And James, I'm like, oh, he's sleeping good.
Thank God.
Thank God. Jesus, thank you for this rest. But I think it's just maybe what they're going to be. Yeah. We had totally different experiences with these babies. Yeah. And now you're a girl mom. You've left the boy club with me, all boy club. Now you're a mix. You're one of each.
I know. I still love being a boy mom though. Don't get me wrong. Get me out in the dirt. Yeah. Let's go fishing. But it helped get me through the NICU stay is I would focus on stuff that didn't even matter, like her outfits. Like I would literally at Greenview, they give them baths at night. So I would literally call the night nurse every night. And I'm like, okay, this is the outfit I want her to be in when she
why not?
Her bath.
And you do this, woman.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I know that
but it's control. No, it's control in an uncontrollable situation. Exactly. That's those little things that you needed. That's a coping skill. That's fine. Who cares? She can put the child in what you want her to. What does it matter to her?
Look cute. What does it matter? It made me excited for her.
It's those those are called sparkles that we look for. Those little things in our day that we can control or look at and say, that brought joy to me.
Yeah. And I decorated her room. Like she had a name banner.
I remember. I loved that.
Pictures of our family.
Why? She deserved it.
I know.
She deserves it to be.
You did.
And she's beautiful and she's wonderful. And so we ask everybody this, and this is again, now you have 2 babies and 2 different experiences. What is one thing you wish you would have known about motherhood before you were a mom? So now you have even more experience. What hangs in there that you say to your clients who are like, I'm pregnant?
I wish that I would have known that we all have a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah.
Something is gonna fall short.
Yeah.
Just to give yourself grace, and go into it knowing like, okay, today the kitchen's clean, but Nolan's hair needs to be washed. Or you know what I mean? Like there's always gonna be
something,
and just to know it is what it is. And as long as your kids are breathing, who cares?
That's all. Fed. Balls bounce.
Yeah. Yeah.
So figure out which bounces one's what breaks.
I do like that.
She's like, I break, and I ain't going. Thank you, Mama. Well, guys, you love her. We love her.
Thanks for having me.
She's my glam goddess.
Oh, love ya.
So, guys, we'll be sharing this week on social some photos back of the NICU stay and her pregnancy stays, and here to help you. And until next time, guys, we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Maternal mental health is as important as physical health. The Previa Alliance podcast was created for and by moms dealing with postpartum depression and all its variables like anxiety, anger, and even apathy. Hosted by CEO, founder Sarah Parkhurst, and licensed clinical social worker Whitney Gay, each episode focuses on specific issues relevant to pregnancy and postpartum. Join us and hear how other moms have overcome mental health challenges, as well as access tips and suggestions on dealing with your own challenges as moms. You can also browse our podcast library and listen to previous episodes at any time. Please know you're not alone on this journey. We're here to help.